folks, welcome you all to yet another vlog of mine. This is your third one in a week, people. How lucky are you? I've had too much to say this week, people. Well, I think for those of you that have been following what's been going on, I've been off this week on holiday, so I've had a few flagons up evenings, which has helped to do this sort of thing, and I've just had an urge to do them, and there's been some news to talk about, and again, there is news to talk about today. So we had a flagons up Friday last week. That was followed by a Flagons Up Wednesday, and we're now on Saturday, so we've got a Flagons Up Saturday. Should we say it, people, and should we say no more? Flagons up to you all. Flagons Up Saturday. Ooh, it's a nice cold one, this, people. Oh, I've only just poured it. What? I'm going to have a sip and we'll get going. You know I'd share it if I could, people. Yeah, so we have news. We do have news that I want to talk about. This could be a shorter little vlog because I said this last time and then spoke for 40 minutes. But there is really only 4-5 points that I've picked up, and it's all to do with this FTC court case or hearing or whatever they're calling it over in the United States of America. That's all to do with Xbox trying to push this deal through to buy Activision Blizzard. And there's some really, really weird weird and interesting, I guess, coming out of this. And we're getting to hear things that we don't normally get to hear from the industry because they have to be all very honest and give their answers. And the FTC are giving Xbox a right royal grilling. Now, before I go any further, I'm going to try and not be too aggressive one way or the other. But I do feel like this is becoming a serious witch hunt on the part of against Xbox, and I don't understand why the imbalance is so big. Can I also say that it was only when I was just about to hit the record button I realised that this T-shirt could hint at the fact that I'm more a PlayStation person than I am an Xbox person, and that is not the case whatsoever. Just dawned on me I was wearing PlayStation Blue as I was about to hit the record button. It just happens to be one of the... If you watched the last vlog, I had bought myself some new T-shirts last week, and the one I wore last time was yellow. And funnily enough, I bought 2 of this colour and 1 of the yellow, and I'm kind of part of me because it was three for the price of 2. I was going to say 2 for the price of 3. That wouldn't have been a deal at all. But there you are, people. There is nothing. This T-shirt has nothing to do with Sony. I should find something green to put in there. There's green in that picture. Look. So this is all very. In fact, right to the right of me, there's a whole case of Xbox games, Xbox One and Xbox 360 games. You just can't see them, people. So there you are. So there is no bias, and in fact, if anything, I'm probably going to sway more in the defence of Xbox than I am anything else in this particular vlog. But I thought it was important to maybe do a little vlog like this just to sort of chat about what bloody hell's going on. And it's interesting to see why certain decisions have been made and why Xbox have done or tried to do some of the things they're doing. But anyway, before we get going, as always, I don't really have much to say. Channel-wise, there's been... Well, last time we spoke, I said that I'd recorded some Diablos to see us through the weekend, and that's true. So you didn't get one yesterday, but you got one this morning, and you're getting one that's already uploaded and ready for tomorrow morning. And then I'll need to record some more, people. So I'll get some more recording of Diablo 4 done next week. It still seems to be very popular. If I give the videos enough time, most of the videos seem to be getting 100 views, which for my little channel is superb. To get 100 views per video when you're well into a Let's Play, for me, is a lot of views. So I'm delighted with that. And they always pick up more in time. And the very first Diablo 4 video I've done for that particular Let's Play, I think, so I'm close to 4,000 or something. Maybe it's 3.5K or something like that, which is pretty decent considering. I mean, those sort of videos for those sort of games, if they're not a game that other people know about and wouldn't be interested, like Wilson's got far more views, but for something like Diablo 4, they've got a huge amount of attention from loads of YouTubers and big Twitchers and all that sort of stuff, then I'm super happy with that. And very happy that you guys are still enjoying the playthrough. So I will look forward to doing more recordings next week. I will say there are still comments that I haven't answered yet from the comments on the channel. I will get back to you all. I just haven't got around to it yet. I don't think there's that many I haven't replied to, but there are a few. And one of those people, if you are, and I apologise that I haven't noted who these people are. I do this all the time, people. I could give you shout outs. But one person was asking me if I was going to do a Let's Play of Final Fantasy 16 because they were absolutely loving it. And we will talk a little bit about Final Fantasy 16 before we get into the Xbox stuff, actually, because I just stumbled upon a comment on Twitter. I will also mention Twitter in a minute. But they were asking me to do Final Fantasy 16, but I won't be, only because I just don't have time to record a Let's Play for Final Fantasy 16 and Diablo 4 and try and finish God of War Ragnarok. There's just too much for me to do, and I'm back at my day job on Monday, people. So no, it's not like I could just sit and record all day. So yeah, before I forget, but I will. I mean, I appreciate the fact that you would like to see me play it. I'm not sure if there'd be a not. That sort of RPG generally doesn't do particularly well on my channel. I'm saying that I did a play of Final Fantasy 13 on Back Compat, and I actually regret not carrying it on a bit longer because it actually has some very decent views on it. That game plays gorgeously on the Xbox Series X. It got back compatted for Xbox One, and it plays at 60 FPS as well, I think, and it's 4K because it got upgraded by Square, I believe, if I remember rightly. So yeah. So before I forget, I do appreciate the interest, and I'm sorry it's not something I'm going to be doing right now. I will play Final Fantasy 16 eventually, but there was no point in buying it on day one because I would never get the chance to play it. It's just going to be sat there, not getting used. So, but I do appreciate the fact that you're enjoying me watching me play the games, and hopefully Diablo 4 is something that you're interested in watching, and if not, the next thing I do maybe. Final Fantasy 16, yeah, before I came on, I was watching, and Twitter, we'll mention Twitter at the same time, because I do mention that I spot things on Twitter, and it has been, a few of you have asked, am I not on Twitter anymore? And the answer to that is, I am not on Twitter anymore. I find Elon Musk to be the most evil man on the planet, and I would rather have nothing to do with him whatsoever. However, I always had, so my account's been deleted from Twitter, and it was months ago, but I had a secondary account which was just called Joystick Steve. That wasn't the account that I was using to communicate with you guys on, for those of you that did through there. That was my Steve Gillespie account. My Joystick Steve account is completely private. It doesn't follow, it doesn't have anyone subbing to it, and it doesn't allow people to sub to it, if I remember rightly. And the only people I've subbed with that account are the games industry people that I want to follow. So I don't do any communicating with it. I don't tweet with it. I just literally just use it for seeing what news is coming through. I've said this before that I will be shifting. Well, I have already got an account on Spoutable. If you haven't checked out Spoutable yet, and you're the sort of person that likes the Twitter idea but is feeling like I did, which is I'd rather have nothing to do with Elon Musk, then Spoutable is exactly the same thing, but we've just been waiting for the apps to drop for it, because the website itself, even though it was a nice mobile site, it's still not the same as having an app. The Android app was released last week, and I'm just waiting for the iOS app to drop, and then I'll be using that. Once those apps are in full flow, I suspect you'll see a lot of big names moving over to Spoutable, because there's a lot of people that don't want to be associated with Elon Musk anymore and his evil doings. I mean, his name alone is a Bond baddie, people. You know what I mean? We should know, really. You know what I mean? As far as Final Fantasy 16 goes, I saw a tweet from somebody saying that the scores were getting bombed. So the actual score for Final Fantasy 16 on Metacritic is 88 from the reviewers, from the official reviewers. But people have been, score bombing, I think they're calling it, which they're doing with other games as well, to bring the score down. So it's sort of sitting at I think it was sitting at 69 or something the last time I looked at it, or something like that. Sitting at a really low score anyway, compared to what the big reviewers had given it. I'm not sure that Final Fantasy is the sort of game that people would go out of their way to do that with. Generally speaking, certainly the only times I've seen that sort of thing happen is with exclusive games, because silly people from either side of the camps want, for some reason, have got far too much time in their hands to get a lot of people together or put out some sort of campaign to make people that probably don't even have that console go onto Metacritic and score a game down to a 1 or something in order to bring its score down. And it happens on both sides of the camp. It's utterly ridiculous and stupid, and those people that do it don't do it. You know, you don't need to do that. There's got to be better things you can do with your life than that. Like, we should be supporting gaming from any angle. And the last thing we want that is that in the industry. Nobody wants to see it. And everybody that sees it happening thinks you're a giant tool. So don't do it. Because if you are doing it, you're a giant tool. And that's coming from me, all right? I'm not saying it in a hateful way. You're just being a tool, and everyone thinks you're being a tool, apart from all the other tools that have followed you into doing that. Don't do it, right? Nobody wants it. Just stop doing it, all right? Love gaming. Get on and play your games. Nobody needs that nonsense going on in the industry. But that's what's been happening. For me, I don't know if this is the case with this game. I don't understand where that negative group of people would come from for a game like that. I can understand. Well, I don't understand it. I think it's stupid, and people are being a giant tool if they do it. But I can understand that people get carried away when it's to do with first-party titles. But this, well, I suppose actually I'm talking nonsense because it isn't exclusive to PlayStation, so I am talking out my arse, aren't I? But yeah, Final Fantasy is a PlayStation exclusive. So if it is happening, then the chances are it's happening from the Xbox side. And please stop it, people. Don't do that. But for me, I just don't feel like it's the sort of game that would be targeted like that. I feel like the Last of Us type stuff and all that malarkey might, but I could just be being naive, of course. But I don't think there's. I have heard gripes about Final Fantasy 16 not being as well, technically not being as sweet as it should be in the 60 FPS. We talked about that last time, I think, but it's certainly steady at 30 as far as I know for its quality mode. But it is a bit of a shambles when it comes to its 60 FPS mode. It got a little bit of criticism for its side quest being a bit dull, and I think it's. The story, some people are saying the story's great, and other people are saying that they didn't like it and it was mediocre. But so that, I think that's just a personal taste type of thing. But there's certainly nothing going on with that game that would suggest it should be getting a low score. I haven't played it, so I can't judge it at all. Perhaps 70 is a fair score from people that just, it is what it is. But I find it hard to believe that, unless it's a polarizing type experience like The Last of Us 2 was, I find it hard to accept the fact that every reviewer that does this as a job on the planet thinks that's a 9 or a 10 pretty much, and yet normal folks that play the game don't. So that's why things become a little bit question marky. But there you are. Anyway, so I think it's sitting around a 69 or a 70 or something when it comes to the actual review scores, and people are the people scores, and people are convinced it's being targeted, people, because it's an exclusive title, which I seem to forget at the beginning of this vlog. Should we pretend that never happened, people? Talking of which, this is going to run in nicely to what we're about to talk about, which is the FTC and Xbox shenanigans, people. So, as part of that, funnily enough, well, it has been brought out. I'm going to continue that part of the conversation, and we'll go. I wasn't going to start there for the FTC stuff, but as part of what's been being said at this hearing from Phil Spencer and other people that are giving evidence in person, which Jim Ryan is not, he's going to be giving some of his, whatever his opinions are over Tinterwebs. I don't think they've done that yet with him, but it's been made clear by Phil Spencer and Microsoft that Sony have been specifically targeting franchises to stop them being on Xbox, and Final Fantasy is one of those titles. There is no other reason for Final Fantasy games like 16 and 7 Remake and all those sort of things not to be on Xbox, other than the fact that PlayStation have paid for exclusivity on those games. And whether there's any time frame on those exclusivities seems to be doubtful. It seems to be that they've actually paid hand over fist for those games never to reach Xbox. So that is another story that came out of the pieces of what's happening, but I thought we'd just mention it at the start because we were talking about Final Fantasy 16. So here's my thing, right? I feel I wasn't sure about, if you look at the crux of what this is, and the thing that's triggered it all happening is Microsoft wanting to buy Activision Blizzard, which is Call of Duty, Diablo 4, Diablo franchise, World of Warcraft, which is a massive, probably Blizzard's biggest franchise, and something that I'm sure Microsoft would want to have and get onto consoles if they could. World of Warcraft, because it is it's something they don't have an exclusive online MMO like that, that they can shout about, and that would give them that. It was all of this nonsense was triggered by the fact they were trying to buy it. The FTC piped up quite early on. Now, for people that don't know, they're a ruling body in America. I think they're just American, that try and decide whether or not a purchase of one company buying another company is going to affect people's what's open to people to, in the world of trading, as to whether or not that's giving customers, if it's going to limit customers, I'm forgetting what I'm trying to say here, people, but if it limits customer choice effectively, and fair pricing and all that sort of stuff, right? So that's what the FTC do. They go, well, hang on a minute, if that big company buys that big company, how much competition is actually left in order to make it a fair environment for gamers in this particular case? But it could be about any business. So they make those sort of decisions as to whether or not they're going to allow that deal to go through. And if they don't allow it to go through, then they can block it. And then those companies have to take it to the high courts and all that sort of stuff to go through more legal shenanigans. And so FTC are trying to block it. They feel like it's not open. It's not going to be fair in the competition if they buy up that market. If they buy up that particular, why am I struggling with my words today, people? If they buy that big company, right? So, and this, bear in mind that both companies, Xbox and PlayStation, consistently have been buying studios for the last number of years, and it's been going on for years and years and years. And in fact, while this has all been going on, PlayStation have bought, I think, 2 more studios, but they were only individual studios. So you can go and you can buy 5 individual studios, but the minute you try and buy something that's, or a big company that encompasses maybe 5 or 6 studios, suddenly it raises a flag. And this only raises a flag because, well, for me, because Sony started making a big deal about it, because Call of Duty is one of the biggest games on the planet, and they don't want to lose it from their platform because they feel like that's going to have a massive detriment to them. I think we all know that wouldn't have a massive detriment to them, really. I know it sells massive amounts every year, but very early on, Microsoft made it very clear that they wouldn't take COD away from PlayStation, but that didn't seem to make any difference. Nintendo have effectively agreed that Microsoft have said that they'll ensure that they can bring COD to the Switch, so they're happy, and they've said that they're happy with that, what they've proposed, which is at least a 10-year promise that they'll bring that franchise to them. However, the thing that there's only 2, and I'm pretty sure I'm right, but someone can correct me in the comments if I've got this wrong. There's only 2 countries at the moment out of about bloody 50 or something that have said they want to block this deal. One is the UK, where I am, and the other is is America, the FTC. And this particular hearing that's happening is happening because they want to try and delay anything happening with it until further down the road, when they want to have another big proper thing going on, or hearing, or whatever it is, to then properly try and block it or have a thing about it. In the UK, it had nothing to do with COD. It was the reason it was blocked was because the UK believed that if this deal happened for some reason, it was going to give Microsoft a massive leg up in controlling cloud gaming. And I'm not sure how they've managed to get that out of that particular purchase. It was all very odd. And cloud gaming is not actually as big anyway. It's still a growing thing. It's still, in the world of COD, it's still something that people would avoid anyway, because there's still, people want in those sort of environments the quickest, leastest, laggiest system in the world. And if you play on the cloud, there's always going to be an element of lag, certainly at the moment. So it was very odd that that's what it was blocked for in the UK. Microsoft are going to appeal it. They are going to take it to the UK courts, I think. So that is going to happen at some point. And the other is America, where the FTC are trying to block it for different reasons. And they seem to be just going hammer and tongue at Microsoft. And they seem to be, in the comments that have come out of this thing, which we'll talk about, it seems to be that they're really like digging into them, saying, well, are you going to say under oath that you're not going to stop making COD for, Call of Duty for PlayStation? And Phil Spencer's being for, and he's being reminded he's under oath and all that sort of stuff. And he's saying, yeah, we'll promise him we're going to bring it for the next 10 years and all this sort of stuff. He's reflecting on the fact that Minecraft is being provided to the PlayStation community on the PlayStation platform, even though they've bought over Minecraft ages ago. And the other thing that's kind of come out of it was that the biggest reason that Microsoft went and bought Bethesda, ZeniMax, was because they got wind of the fact that PlayStation were trying to make Starfield exclusive to PlayStation. So they got wind of that and they thought, Jesus Christ, we can't have that happening. We're already like third place. Like we can't. So literally all of the things that Microsoft are doing, they've done in retaliation to the fact that PlayStation have been doing their utmost to try and push Sony and make them completely irrelevant in the marketplace. And I feel like the focus has been put on Microsoft to try and explain themselves as to why they've got to buy up, why they want to buy up these companies. And all they're trying to do is say, look, we're third wheel here. We're behind Nintendo and PlayStation. And they've been, and PlayStation's been allowed to buy who they bloody like without anybody making a song and dance about it. So the only reason this is kicking off is because, the biggest reason it's kicked off so heavily for me is because Jim Ryan has basically said he's not happy with the fact that they're trying to buy Activision Blizzard, and he's made a right song and dance about it, saying it would be unfair to everyone in the world. But they're just trying to put a block on it because they're trying to do everything in their power to keep pushing Microsoft backward rather than let them strive forward. And you can say what you like about Sony, but they bought all their studios as well. There's very few of them that actually started as PlayStation studios. Insomniac, who are their biggest hitters at the moment, started as an independent studio. Pretty sure Naughty Dog started as an independent studio. So, like, all of their big studios were bought. And Microsoft, I'm not sure what the history of... the way that games worked back in the day was a bit different anyway. They would pay for exclusivity, which is what Sony are kind of doing with Final Fantasy anyway. So there was a lot of things where you didn't own the studio, but you would pay for that exclusivity for them to make you a game, which Microsoft have just done with, we talked about it in the last vlog. They've just done that with the studio that made the original Gears games and Bulletstorm. They're paying them. They're saying, here's a budget of 50 million quid or dollars or whatever it is. Make us a game, whatever that game might be. And that's been the history of game making. And first party studios then they're almost like second party studios because they're doing an exclusive game. It's never going to go anywhere else, but they don't actually work for you. They're not owned by you. They're just working for you is what I mean. And I don't know. I don't know where's the point where it's okay and where's the point where it's not okay. So it's okay for Sony to go and buy 500 individual studios, but it's not okay for Microsoft to buy a company that has 5 studios within it. And the only reason they care is because Call of Duty is in that mix. As far as I remember, I don't even remember them mentioning Blizzard. Because I think the only game that comes from, Blizzard will encompass... Is it not them that do Overwatch as well? But anyway, I've never even heard them mention Blizzard, but they have continuously mentioned the fact that Call of Duty shouldn't be prevented on other platforms. So it's just starting to bug me a little bit, and it's been really interesting to hear the things like PlayStation were on the verge of making Starfield an exclusive, before Xbox were like, well, we can't have that happening, and what's the best way to resolve this issue? They've obviously got in touch with Todd Howard and the other owners and said, look, how would you feel about becoming an Xbox studio and doing all of your games under our umbrella? And that game is an exclusive. And the big deal that's being made about are you going to keep making Call of Duty for all platforms and not just your platform? None of that focus has ever been put onto PlayStation. When they buy a studio, that studio is a PlayStation studio, and it's always going to be a PlayStation studio. I will give you the one example, and that one example is Bungie, who they bought over. I think that's their most recent big purchase, which was last year, I think. They bought Bungie, which was a huge surprise to me because they've sort of historically been more connected to Xbox through the whole Halo franchise. So I found that remarkable that they actually let Sony buy them, at which point it was made very clear really early on that the part of the deal with Bungie was that Bungie themselves said, we don't want to be limited to just PlayStation. We want to make games for all platforms, including the Xbox platform. So it was made very clear very early on that Bungie is now a Sony studio, but it will make games for all platforms, including Xbox. It wasn't even a question, wasn't even, it was just straight from the off. That is the only exception to the rule that I am aware of as far as Sony goes. And I'm pretty sure it only exists because it was the only reason that Bungie would become a Sony studio. So at that point, I'm thinking, well, why even bother becoming a studio for Sony anyway? Like, what's the benefit? I mean, I get bigger budget maybe, but I mean, I feel like they're a pretty solid self-supporting company anyway. And the whole point of them sort of breaking ties with Halo and Xbox really was to become their own animal and be able to do the games they wanted to do. So it was all a bit strange for me, that whole Bungie purchase. But outside of the Bungie purchase, every purchase that PlayStation have made, those studios now make exclusive games for PlayStation. So why is it any different for Microsoft? Why are they not allowed to? If they buy these studios, then they should be able to make them exclusive to Xbox. Like, I don't understand why it's okay for one side and it's not okay for the other. And I think it's becoming really apparent really fast that this is it is feeling like a massive witch hunt towards Xbox rather than actually looking at the entirety of what the hell's been going on. And I think that's what Xbox are trying to do in this hearing. They're trying to shine a massive light on what PlayStation have been up to and the little bits of nasty business they're doing in order to push Xbox further and further away from being successful in the market. And I don't feel, I mean, I find it very odd. I mean, I know you're a business and you want to make money, but if you have no competition to thrive against and you try and push them out of the market completely, it's going to do nothing but make the gaming industry worse, not better. You should be pushing each other to strive to be better and do better and better and better. Both sides will then compete and bring us the best possible games. I don't understand how it's managed to get to this point, other than PlayStation are making a right meal out of it because they just want to either make a point of principle or they're just deliberately trying to make Microsoft's life really, really difficult at every possible turn. And it just feels really nasty. Like, I don't like this feeling in the gaming industry. It's supposed to be a fun, upbeat place where people, the developers can thrive off each other, get ideas off each other, and really bring us the best possible games. It's all very, very odd, and I'm concerned that it's not really going to change much. And I really, really hope this deal goes through. I'm just slightly disappointed that they've forced Microsoft's hand to say that COD has to come to all platforms, or they're making them say it so that they have to at least commit to it for the next 10 years. Because for me, they shouldn't have to commit. They should say, well, we'll make that decision when we come to it. And why is it only that particular franchise you're worried about anyway? You know what I mean? It's like, so it's okay for everyone to do that with everything else, apart from when we buy the studio that makes Call of Duty, then it's not okay. How is that okay? That doesn't make any sense to me. That is the epitome of unfairness. Like, your whole purpose of having these hearings and everything is to make life fair for people, and yet you're forcing Microsoft to do something that is completely unfair because everyone else is being allowed to do the opposite of it. So I don't understand that at all. Like, the whole thing makes no sense to me as to... I mean, there just has to be people kicking around that really want to see... have a good shoe-in at Microsoft, basically. I don't understand it. I don't understand how this deal is any different to any other deal that has happened. For me, I think I feel like they got more studios out of the ZeniMax deal anyway. and no one's forced them to make sure Starfield comes to every console. They're trying to force them to say whether or not Elder Scrolls 6 is coming to every console in this thing. But I think Phil's still tried to stay. He's basically saying, look, that, and this was another thing that came out of it, because we now know that Elder Scrolls 6 is at least 5 years away, which we kind of knew anyway, because they're not going to start making Elder Scrolls 6 until Starfield's finished. That's Todd Howard's studio. Like, he's not going to make two giant franchises at the same time. So that once Starfield is up running in September and bugs are fixeth, which there will be some, I'm sure, then they'll start working on Elder Scrolls 6. But Phil Spencer's saying, we're not making a decision on that yet. That game's 5 years away. We've not even decided what we're doing with it. And they're just doing, not that they can do anything about it, but they're trying to make a point about whether or not they'll bring these games to other platforms. And it's like, well, we don't have to tell you that, and we don't have to do it if we don't want to. That Sony don't do it. Why are you expecting us to do it? That's what I'd be saying to them. Like, why are you telling us that it's not okay, but you're happy for PlayStation to do it? And Phil Spencer's been saying this as well. He's been saying that 30% of the money from games that Microsoft put on a Sony platform, he's basically had a dig saying they take 30% of the money of the games that we put on that platform, and they use that money to try and drive us out of the market at every possible turn, is what he said, basically, in words to that effect. So, I think this is Microsoft, and I think rightly so. I think Phil's using this as a platform to start airing out all of the nastiness that PlayStation have been doing in trying to prevent them from being proper contenders in the market. And I'm not sitting here telling people to feel sorry for Microsoft. All I'm saying is that we need to have a level playing field. Like, if it's okay for PlayStation to buy studios and make those games exclusive, then it's certainly okay for Xbox to buy studios and make those games exclusive. Just because you're not happy that that's a game that you wanted to play, that's beside the point. There's a million other, well, there's 100 other games out there where people feel the same way about the games they wanted to play are now on a different platform. So you can't, if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander, isn't it? The old saying goes, or something like that. So you can't have it both, but you can't have it your own way and then say it's not okay for Xbox. Like, for my liking, they should royally shaft them and say, screw you, we're not giving you COD. We're going to push this through. You're not going to get COD because you're right wankers about the whole thing. So you can kiss goodbye to Call of Duty, and that's it, is what I'd be saying in that courtroom. Because in the end, that's not why the UK blocked it anyway. Say, fine, we're going to give it to Nintendo, we're going to keep it for ourselves, it'll go on PC, and you lot can fuck off because you've just been right nasty about the whole thing. I don't recall Xbox being nasty about any of the stuff that PlayStation have done. Let me know in the comments below if they have, and I've just not spotted it. Anyway, I think the key stories I had here were Elder Scrolls 6 being 5 years away, which just kind of came out of the wash as they were talking about it. Minecraft, well, here was an interesting bit, because Minecraft, we talked about it a bit earlier, but Minecraft, it is on PlayStation 5, but it's actually the PlayStation 4 version, because Sony wouldn't give Xbox a dev kit for the PlayStation 5. Because they were like, we're not showing you what our hardware is. And it's like, well, fine. But all you've got then is the PlayStation 4 version, because we haven't got anything to design a PlayStation 5 version on. So they're sitting, although the community can play that game, they're still sitting playing the PlayStation 4 version on the PlayStation 5. I think the reality of that, though, is that I don't think Minecraft has been upgraded for the Xbox Series X yet and S yet anyway either. So I don't think it is an uneven argument. But certainly one of the issues was that Sony wouldn't give them a dev kit anyway, irrelevant of the game, to do any Xbox games on. So, I mean, I find that remarkable as well. I mean, so what are you going to do when it comes to COD then? If you want a PS6 version of COD, well, you're not going to give them a dev kit, because if you're not going to give them a dev kit, you're going to get a shit version of COD then, aren't you, you numbnuts? The whole thing's just a pile of bloody wank, innit? It just doesn't make any sense at all. Unbelievable. What else do we have? Phil Spencer confirmed Starfield was potentially going to be a Sony exclusive, which is why they jumped in. Sony, I said a few of you probably went, where's Steve gone? Did he cut off? Just look at my notes, people. So yeah, well that was it really, and I have the links to the articles, which I was actually going to read through each link, but it's like I don't know if we need to do that. Even have my glasses already, people. I've kind of talked about it. I mean, I suppose we could have a little look at the articles, right enough. I did have a couple of things outside of this that I had jotted down as well, which were... Yeah, well, I had an article on the fact that the Xbox Series X console is a must-own console for RPG fans after their Xbox showcase, which was superb. But they have gone very RPG orientated, Western RPG certainly, compared to what used to be the shooter box back in the day, didn't it? The old Xbox. I tell you what, let's have a look at the Elder Scrolls article. So yes, accept all cookies, thank you. So the Elder Scrolls 6, 5+ years away, PlayStation version undecided. Xbox, this is coming from IGN. Xbox's Phil Spencer has confirmed the Elder Scrolls 6 is still 5+ years away. The Xbox boss is also being careful about mentioning which platform Skyrim sequel is planned for, saying it's difficult for us right now to nail it down. Fuck you, it ain't coming to Sony. That's what that sentence says to me. Biggest franchise you've got, no chance that's going on a PlayStation. There was some confusion surrounding the Elder Scrolls 6's potential exclusivity during the trial. As Spencer said previously in his deposition, I have made public statements that Elder Scrolls 6 will skip PlayStation, but he now says he does not recall doing this. Looking back to November 2021, Spencer certainly hinted that Elder Scrolls 6 would be an Xbox exclusive without explicitly saying it. At the time, Spencer said, it's not about punishing any other platform. Like, I fundamentally believe all the platforms can continue to grow, but in order to be on Xbox, I want us to be able to bring a full, complete package of what we have. And that would be true when I think of Elder Scrolls 6. That would be true when I think of any other of our franchises. Now in court, Spencer spoke about the Elder Scrolls 6's release window and planned platforms. It's many years away, but it's a game we have announced we would begin working on. I think we've been a little unclear on what platform it will launch on, given how far out the game is. It's difficult for us right now to nail down exactly what platforms that game will launch on. As I said with Elder Scrolls 6, it's so far out, it's hard to understand what the platform will even be at this point. It's the same team that's finishing Starfield, which comes out this September, so we're talking about it likely being 5+ years away. The Elder Scrolls 6's distant, unknown release date isn't much of a surprise. Bethesda Game Studios is currently gearing up to launch Starfield in September. Yeah. So there you go. So yeah, I mean, there's no way in God's green earth they're going to stick that on bloody PlayStation. No, they don't have to. And he's obviously just avoiding saying it outright, because obviously if he says that that's the case, then they'll just use it as another thing to whip them with. So yeah, the other second article was the Minecraft dev kit article, I think. Xbox Phil Spencer blames Sony for the lack of native PlayStation 5 version of Minecraft. During today's portion of the Microsoft FTC trial, Spencer claimed Sony was hesitant to give Microsoft access to PlayStation 5 dev kits ahead of the console launch in 2020. Sony, quote, Sony was reluctant to send us development kits for the PlayStation 5 at the same time they were sending them to other developers, which put us in a disadvantage relative to other developers. I think Sony could have sent the development kits to Microsoft just as easy as they sent them to other publishers. I mean, it's ridiculous anyway. I mean, you're not telling me that people from Microsoft and PlayStation end up in devs seeing what's going on and they get to see what dev kits they're working with from other people. They already know really what the other dev kits are. It's not like, I'm pretty sure they know before they're announced. Minecraft is playable on PlayStation 5 through PlayStation 4 versions, so it's not as if PlayStation players have been left out the Minecraft ecosystem this generation. Industry experts are also pointing out that the Xbox Series XS doesn't appear to have its own optimized version of Minecraft, putting the two platforms on even ground, which is what we talked about earlier. However, the FTC argued Microsoft has had 3 years since the PS5 launch to create a native version of Minecraft for the platform. Spencer responded by saying Xbox looked at ways to maximise the success of Minecraft. Very short statement. Yeah, so I'm really just reading you the full articles of what I've been discussing, but there you go. So that's the ins and outs of it. And the other article was Phil Spencer confirming that, well, this is probably the more interesting one, actually. Let's read through it anyway. Might not need to do all of it. Starfield is coming this September. On the witness stand as part of today's trial between Microsoft, Activision Blizzard and the FTC, Xbox head Phil Spencer confirmed that there were discussions about Starfield potentially skipping Xbox consoles prior to Microsoft's acquisition of ZeniMax. This part of Spencer's testimony was filled with questions about third-party exclusivity deals, where the Xbox boss also confirmed that Sony signed Square Enix to a deal to keep Final Fantasy XVI as a PlayStation 5 console exclusive. Spencer said Xbox needed to do a lot of work with a lot of partners given the competitive situation we had against the market leader, referring to Sony. He also said Xbox was worried about losing Starfield after seeing Bethesda titles like Ghostwire Tokyo and Deathloop head exclusively to PlayStation. Spencer said Xbox had to secure content for its platform by way of Bethesda acquisition to remain viable in the business. Back in 2020, when Microsoft announced its plans to buy Bethesda, journalist Imran Khan first reported on Starfield's potential PlayStation exclusivity, writing, Sony has been negotiating timed exclusivity on Starfield as recently as a few months ago. Going to guess either those talks are done or price suddenly went way, way up. So yeah, there you go. I mean, it just shows you the fine line between Starfield now being that whole thing now being a Xbox studio anyway, but Starfield now being completely on Xbox. And yet, if Xbox hadn't made that move to buy them, then the high likelihood is that Starfield is suddenly a PlayStation exclusive for a year or whatever, 2 years. So, yeah, I mean, it's just ridiculous, the whole thing. And it's like, you know, PlayStation are trying to paint this picture of Xbox and Microsoft being these people with all these gazillions of pounds so they can just go and buy up all these companies and that's why they can be so good in the marketplace, when the reality is that Xbox are actually the worst off out of the three big companies in the gaming industry. Phil Spencer's already come out and said that they've lost the console war effectively, so far as they can't ever catch, well, I mean, it would take a long, long, long time, decades, to catch where PlayStation are at. And PlayStation would have to royally fuck themselves over like they did with the launch of the PlayStation 3 or something, in order for Xbox to get anywhere close to them again when it comes to physical console sales. That's not to say that Microsoft still can't be successful. They are still being successful and they've got their own strategy and their own plan. But in order for any of that to work, they need studios, they need exclusives, and they've got to build their core of what's going to make that happen. So anyway, for my liking, and again, you know, I'm a lover of both sides, games and consoles, and I love the fact we've got both of those big companies. Also, I like the fact we've got Nintendo who do their completely own thing without getting too involved with the other two. I just don't want this nastiness in the marketplace. And to be fair to, I mean, Phil Spencer certainly has always done everything he can publicly to support PlayStation. Whenever they launch their console, he always tweets up saying good luck to you all. Whenever they've got a game out or something, he's always saying good luck with it and all this sort of stuff. Like, he always comes across as a nice bloke. Like, he doesn't want to be having this going on. You know what I mean? He just wants to do all he can to make his business as successful as possible in comparison to PlayStation. That's all he's doing. I mean, he's not. So I don't get it. It sounds like a horrendous amount of money. It is. The bit I don't understand is how you've got 49 billion to buy over a company like that, but you've been laying off staff left, right, and centre in other studios. That's the bit that always kind of baffles my brain a little bit when it comes to Microsoft or any studio really, or any big business. But there you are. I'm sure there's reasons and stuff that I'm never going to be privy to, and most of us won't. But there you are. Anyway, I hope that's been of interest to you. I'm finding it fascinating, some of the stuff that's coming out of this FTC thing. And it is, I think, just putting a massive microscope on the fact that that it seems to be good for one but not good for the other. And I'm hoping that that magnifying glass is going to make that absolutely clear to the FTC and everybody else that Microsoft buying this big company is going to have not that much of an impact on PlayStation anyway, and it's no different to what they've been doing. It's just that they've been buying up individual studios instead of the groups of studios that are owned by an encompassing one. And I think if Microsoft hadn't bought ZeniMax as recently as they had, Bethesda and ZeniMax being the overriding company, I don't think this would have been as much of a hoo-ha as it is. But because they've gone for two massive games, two big industry leaders, effectively in game. I mean, these people used to have their own, showcases and stuff. In fact, Bethesda still had their own, didn't they, for Starfield, really? But because they've gone for two massive giants to buy them out, it's become this big deal. And I really don't think that it is, because I think if those weren't all part of one studio and you'd gone and bought 3 or 4 studios if these studios were all independent, you bought them all individually, I don't think no one would have blinked an eye, because no one seems to be blinking an eye at PlayStation doing it. So, yeah. And to be fair, no one was blinking much of an eye when Xbox were buying up the smaller studios that they did, or the individual studios that they did, like in Exile and what have you. So anyway, it's going to be super interesting to see if we get any more big news coming out of it. It's fascinating stuff, like when you see people in courtrooms and things, because it's the only place in the world where you generally can't. You can try and avoid a question, but you can't not answer it honestly without being in serious trouble. You put your hand on the Bible, whether you believe in God or not. You still end up in a jail cell if you tell a lie. So it is really interesting that this sort of truths come out. Jim Ryan's going to be in the same boat. He's not going to be able to lie about what's been going on. He's got to have to come out and tell the truth if he's asked hard questions about why is it okay for you to do that and not for them to do that. And hopefully that's what Xbox's lawyers will be having a go at, because other than Bungie, I can't think of anything PlayStation do that ends up on Xbox. Help me out in the comments, people, if you know, because I don't know any. I can think of Microsoft ones like Minecraft, but I can't think of anything PlayStation. I feel like there is one, and I'm forgetting what it is, because I feel like PlayStation bought something that was already out there that was on multiple platforms, and I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. So let me know in the comments below what that might be. But there you are, people. That's what I have for you. There you are. I told you I wasn't going to talk for long, and there we are, 48 minutes. I think it might even be longer than the other one. But to be fair, I've read the articles and I've kind of done my own version of the articles, but there you are. Anyway, I hope it's been of use to some of you out there, if you haven't been following the IGNs and the game news of the world. But that's my take on it anyway. Be really interested to see what comes up in the next week or so. I don't know how long this thing's on for. The rest of my night is going to be not much in the way of editing for this, because these little cheap vlogs, well, cheap. Low budget. When I do them on the iPhone like this in the little chill out area, I tend not to smelt movies and stuff together on it, so it's not going to take me long to edit this together on InShot, I think it is, on the phone. I use that just to put the intro outro on and stuff. Going to do that. I'm going to watch it's Glastonbury on in the UK at the moment, so that's all covered on the BBC iPlayer, so I can go and trigger any of the big shows that are on tonight at Glastonbury. I think Guns N' Roses are on later, but I think it's not until 11 tonight. And there's a whole plethora of other artists doing their performances tonight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually try and put I'm going to put the little I've got the little table here that I can put out in the garden with my chair. Sun's blazing again, and it's quite a cool breeze as well. I'm going to try and get the laptop out there, and I'll stream Glastonbury to the laptop to this speaker here, and I'll have the stereo sound coming out with a bit of the footage in front of me. So that's the plan. We'll see how it goes. And with a few of these people, flagons up once again to you all. A Glastonbury day for me. It's a Glastonbury with sunshine, people. It's quite often the case that Glastonbury, you just watch it and it's just people in their wellies sludging about the place. I think one of the most iconic moments at Glastonbury was when Rihanna was there years and years back singing Umbrella, and it was pissing down, but it just made for this magical moment because of the song. But there you go, beautiful sunshine. They're all roasting. I was watching a gig earlier. The guy on stage had his t-shirt off and everything. He was just sweltering. It was giving it large. Who was it? Tom Grennan, I think it was. Yeah, I mean, I haven't listened to much of Tom Grennan's stuff, but he gave a cracking performance. Like his set was unbelievable. And the crowd, a massive crowd for him, really going for it. But it was absolutely baking hot. So anyway, I'm looking forward to watching more of that. But I shall put this all together and hopefully I'll have that for you. Well, you'll know this because you'll be watching it while I tell you. But I'm hoping it's 5:15 now. Maybe go for an 8 o'clock. Push for an 8 o'clock, people. We'll see. But it's a funny thing, though, because I have to... When I upload to YouTube on my phone, which is how I'll do this, if the screen switches off, it stops. So I have to set the phone not to turn the screen off, which is what happened last time. And you can do it, actually, on the iPhone, thankfully. So I'll have to make sure I've got a charger out there with me as well. Anyway, this is all rather mundane stuff, people you don't need to know about, isn't it, really? But there you are. I hope that's been of use to you. Let me know in the comments below what you think about all that madness, people, or indeed anything at all to do with the channel or me or what have you, and I will, of course, answer you back like I always do. It has been an honour and a privilege serving for you once again in this vlog of mine, and I shall catch you all in the next one. Take it easy, folks. Bye.